My wife sold my grandfather's watch without asking, so I tracked it down, bought it back, and told her I was done over dinner. I'm a 32-year-old man, and out of everything I've ever owned, nothing has meant more to me than my grandfather's watch. It's not fancy, not gold or jeweled, just an old, heavy pocket watch with a small crack on the glass and an engraving on the back that reads, "Keep your word." But that simple phrase and that old metal timepiece shaped the kind of man I became. I still remember sitting on the porch with my grandfather when I was 10. He'd wind the watch slowly, the faint ticking filling the air between us. "Time's the only thing you can't buy back," he used to say. "So spend it on what matters, and keep your word, no matter how hard it gets." He wasn't a rich man, but he was the most honest person I ever knew. Watching him work from sunrise to sunset, I learned that dignity isn't about what you have, it's about how you live. When he passed, I was the one who found the watch in his bedside drawer. My grandmother told me he wanted me to have it, said he believed I'd carry the family name the right way. I remember clutching it so tight at the funeral that the edges dug into my palm. It wasn't just an object. It felt like he'd handed me a responsibility. For years, I kept it in a small wooden box on my dresser. I didn't wear it. I didn't flaunt it, I just checked on it sometimes, like you'd visit an old friend. It was my anchor, a reminder of where I came from. And the kind of man I promised to stay. I never imagined that one day, the person closest to me would take that promise, sell it for something as meaningless as money. And that's where everything began to break. If you'd met my wife, Jenna, a few years ago, you'd probably think we were perfect together. We used to be. When we first got married, we were partners in every sense, splitting bills, laughing over burnt dinners, talking about dreams that felt big but reachable. But somewhere along the way, things shifted. I can't even pinpoint when. Maybe it was after she started posting everything online, turning every date night, every trip, every moment into content. Life stopped being something we lived and became something she performed. I work an IT stable job, decent pay, nothing flashy. Jenna, on the other hand, always wanted more. "You don't understand. Image matters," she'd say, scrolling through influencers on her phone. I'd nod, try to be understanding. But the more she chased that image, the more our real life fell apart. Bills piled up, our savings shrank, and every argument ended the same way, her blaming me for being too simple, me apologizing just to keep the peace. There were days when I'd come home, exhausted, and find boxes from online orders stacked at the door. New clothes, skincare, some expensive light for her videos. "We'll pay it off later," she'd say, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I should have seen the signs, the growing distance, the hollow apologies, the way she'd roll her eyes whenever I brought up budgeting. But I kept thinking, it's just a phase. Marriage has rough patches, right? Still, deep down, I could feel something cracking between us. Love was being replaced by silence, trust by tension, and I had no idea that soon, one small wooden box on my dresser would become the final spark that burned it all down. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning, one of those rare days where the world felt still. I was reorganizing my dresser, folding shirts, trying to distract myself from the growing distance between Jenna and me. That's when I noticed it. The small wooden box where I kept my grandfather's watch, the one thing I never touched without care, was slightly open. My stomach dropped. I hadn't opened it in months. At first, I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe I'd just left it ajar. I lifted the lid anyway, and my heart froze. The velvet lining inside was empty. The watch was gone. For a full minute, I couldn't breathe. I tore through drawers, checked every shelf, even crawled under the bed like a man possessed. Nothing. The room felt suddenly smaller, claustrophobic, and all I could hear was my grandfather's voice echoing in my head. "Keep your word." When Jenna walked in, holding her coffee, I tried to sound calm. "Hey, have you seen my grandfather's watch? The one in the wooden box?" She blinked once too long. "No, why?" she said, sipping casually. But her tone, It wasn't confusion. It was avoidance. You sure? I pressed, my voice trembling. It's not the kind of thing I'd misplace, she shrugged. Maybe you moved it. You're always losing things. I wasn't, and she knew it. That night after she went to bed, I sat in the dark with my laptop open, scrolling through every possible explanation that wasn't her. But when I checked our shared eBay account, one she used to sell old clothes, my heart stopped. There it was. An auction history showing a vintage engraved pocket watch, sold 3 days ago. The photo was grainy, but the engraving was clear as day. Keep your word. And in that moment, I realized she hadn't just sold a watch. She'd sold my grandfather's last words to me. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that eBay listing. The photo, the description, the timestamp. I memorized every detail like evidence from a crime scene. By morning, I'd rehearsed a dozen ways to confront her, but none of them prepared me for the look she gave when I finally did. I waited until breakfast. She was scrolling through her phone at the table, sipping orange juice, looking perfectly unbothered. My voice came out steady, too steady. Jenna, I found something online. Something you need to explain. She didn't even look up. What are you talking about? I slid my phone toward her, the eBay listing glowing between us. Her smile faltered for just a second, that tiny flicker of guilt, before she put on her best performance. Oh my God, seriously? You're acting like I murdered someone. I sold it because we needed money, okay? You're always stressed about bills, and it was just sitting there, I said, my voice breaking. That was my grandfather's. You knew what it meant to me. She slammed her phone down. It's a watch, not his ashes. I thought we were supposed to be a team. I did it for us. No, I said quietly. You did it for you. Her face twisted. You're being dramatic. You care more about that stupid watch than you do about me. That line, that manipulation, hit me harder than the betrayal itself. I felt my chest tighten, the kind of anger that comes from heartbreak, not hate. She stormed off, muttering about how ungrateful I was, how she sacrificed for our marriage. But I didn't follow her. I just stood there, staring at the empty spot on the shelf where the box used to sit, realizing something I didn't want to admit yet. It wasn't just the watch that was gone. It was respect. And once that's sold, you can't buy it back easily. The next few days felt like walking through fog. I went to work, answered emails, smiled when I had to, but inside I was unraveling. Every tick of a clock reminded me of that missing watch. I couldn't shake the thought that some stranger might be holding it right now, clueless about the meaning it carried. On the third night, I opened the eBay listing again and traced the seller and buyer info. I couldn't message the buyer directly through her account. It would notify Jenna. So, I created a new one under my name and wrote a simple message. Hi, I believe the watch you purchased might have sentimental value. I'm the original owner's grandson. I'd like to buy it back, whatever price you ask. I stared at the blinking cursor before hitting send. I didn't know if I'd get a reply. Part of me didn't even expect one. But the next evening, a message came through. I'm sorry, but I bought it fair and square. It's a beautiful piece. What makes it so special to you? I swallowed hard and typed back everything. The porch talks, the engraving, the promise. My fingers trembled as I wrote, like I was confessing to a ghost. A few hours later, another reply. Meet me tomorrow at noon. Coffee shop on Pine and 8th. Bring cash. That night, I couldn't tell if I was nervous or relieved. It felt wrong sneaking around my own wife to fix something she broke. But it also felt necessary. When I told Jenna I had errands the next day, she barely looked up from her phone. Don't forget to get groceries, she said. I looked at her, the woman who once promised to build a life with me, and for the first time, I saw someone I didn't recognize. I just nodded. I got to the coffee shop early. It was one of those quiet places tucked between office buildings where time seemed to move slower fitting. I thought bitterly, for what I was there to reclaim. I sat by the window, palms sweaty, eyes scanning every person who walked in. Then I saw him, an older man, maybe in his late 60s. Carrying a small leather case, he spotted me and gave a polite nod before sitting down. "You must be the grandson," he said, his voice calm but curious. I nodded, trying not to let the emotion in my throat show. "Do you have it?" I asked quietly. He opened the case, and there it was, my grandfather's watch. The same crack on the glass, the same faint scratches along the rim. For a moment the sounds around us faded. The clinking cups, the low hum of chatter, it all disappeared. It felt like seeing a ghost. A piece of my childhood suddenly made real again. I reached out but stopped short, afraid to touch it, afraid it might vanish if I blinked. The man smiled softly. "You really do care about this thing, don't you?" "It's not a thing," I whispered. "It's everything." She just said it was an old family item she didn't need anymore. That sentence burned through me like acid. I handed him an envelope, double what he'd paid. He hesitated, then nodded. "For what it's worth," he said, "I think your grandfather would be proud you came for it." I took the watch carefully, like it might crumble in my hands. The ticking sound felt louder now, alive. Driving home, I kept glancing at it on the seat beside me. Relief mixed with heartbreak. I'd gotten the watch back, but the woman I loved had already sold something far more valuable. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of the end. When I got home that evening, Jenna was on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. I slipped the watch box into my coat pocket and said nothing. She looked up briefly, smirked, and asked, "Did you remember the groceries?" I nodded. That was it. That was all she cared about. I should have exploded. I should have told her that I'd tracked down the buyer, that I'd paid double just to undo her betrayal. But I didn't. I wanted to see if she'd bring it up herself, if there was even a trace of guilt left in her. Days passed and she didn't. Not a word. Not a flicker of remorse. Instead, she acted lighter, happier even, posting more online pictures of her perfect life, selfies with captions like, "Love is built on trust, and some people will never understand loyalty." The irony made me sick. I'd scroll through her posts in silence, watching strangers comment about how lucky she was to have such a caring husband. It felt like living inside a lie at night. I'd lie awake beside her, listening to her soft breathing while my mind replayed every moment of our marriage. The laughter, the promises, the slow erosion of honesty. I started noticing how every word she spoke had a layer beneath it. Every apology came with a justification. Every act of affection felt performative, like she was keeping up appearances for an invisible audience. Meanwhile, I'd take the watch out late at night just to hold it. I couldn't wear it, not yet. It didn't feel right, not while things were still poisoned between us. But hearing it tick again, it reminded me of the one person who never lied to me. I didn't know what I was waiting for. A confession, apology, a miracle. But the silence between us was no longer peaceful. It was war disguised as calm. And I could feel something building beneath that quiet, something that was about to break wide open. It happened on a Thursday night. Jenna was in the shower, humming to herself, while I was in the kitchen trying to force down leftovers I couldn't taste. The ticking of the watch on the counter was the only sound that kept me grounded. Out of habit, I opened my laptop to check our finances, not because I wanted to argue again, but because I needed to understand where we stood. That's when I saw it. There it was, buried in the joint account, a series of recent charges that didn't add up. Designer makeup, new lighting equipment, subscription payments to influencer workshops, thousands gone. My stomach turned cold. The money from the watch sale wasn't for bills like she'd claimed. It had funded her image, her carefully curated fake perfection. I felt the betrayal all over again, sharper this time. She hadn't sold my grandfather's watch out of desperation. She'd sold it to feed her ego. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transactions. Every purchase felt like another knife in my chest. When she came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel and smiling, I asked, "Did you ever pay the electric bill?" She froze for a split second before saying, "Of course I did." "Why?" I tilted the laptop toward her. Because according to this, we've been paying for you. Her smile faltered. You're spying on me now? Wow, real healthy, Mark. Spying, I said quietly. No, I'm just finally looking at the truth. She crossed her arms, defensive as always. I was going to pay it back. You're making it sound like a crime. It is, I whispered. Not legally, but morally? It is. She rolled her eyes, muttering, You're so dramatic. It's just stuff. But that word, stuff, set something off inside me. My grandfather's voice echoed again, Keep your word. I realized she'd never kept hers, not once. And for the first time, I stopped trying to fix her lies and started thinking about how to free myself from them. The next few weeks blurred together. We coexisted like strangers, sharing a house but not a life. Every conversation was transactional. Groceries, bills, schedules. Nothing real. The silence between us had become something living, breathing, a quiet reminder that love doesn't always die loud. Sometimes it just fades until you don't recognize its face anymore. One night, it all finally cracked. I came home late from work to find her sitting on the couch, a glass of wine in hand, the TV flickering across her face. She didn't look up when I entered. You're late, she said flatly. Stayed late to cover rent, I replied. She sighed dramatically. You've changed, Mark. You barely talk to me. You don't even try anymore. That hit something deep. You sold my grandfather's watch, I said quietly, and lied about it. What exactly am I supposed to try for? She scoffed. God, you're still on about that. It was just a stupid watch. You act like I cheated on you. Pierre left the room. I stared at her, searching for any hint of remorse, but there was none. Just cold indifference. Something inside me snapped. You did cheat, I said. Not with another person, but with trust. You sold the only thing that ever meant something real, because you wanted people online to think we had more than we did. Her eyes rolled, but her voice turned sharp. You're pathetic, you know that? Always clinging to the past. Maybe if you had any ambition, I wouldn't have had to carry the image for both of us. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the only way to stop myself from breaking completely. You didn't carry us, I said, my voice trembling. You buried us. She stood up, wine glass in hand, and said coldly, Then maybe you should stop digging. And with that, she walked upstairs, leaving me alone in the dim light, surrounded by the echo of every broken promise. That night, I sat on the floor holding the watch in my palm. It's ticking steady, the only heartbeat left in the house. And that's when I realized I wasn't just losing her. I was losing myself. After that night, something inside me went quiet, not numb, but crystal clear. The kind of silence that comes when you finally stop begging to be understood. I started planning my exit, not in anger, but in calm precision. Every move was deliberate. Opening a new bank account, moving my savings, finding a small apartment across town. I didn't want a messy confrontation. I wanted closure on my terms. I began moving small things out first, an old jacket, a few books, my tools. Nothing she'd notice. The watch, though, that never left my pocket. I carried it everywhere, like it was guiding me toward freedom. Each night, I'd listen to its ticking before I slept, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that I was still moving forward, second by second. Jenna, meanwhile, stayed oblivious. She was planning a couple's photo shoot for social media, as if our lives weren't burning down behind the scenes. It'll help fix our image, she said one morning while scrolling through photographers. I smiled and nodded, knowing I was just days away from disappearing from that image altogether. I booked a reservation at her favorite restaurant, the same place where I'd proposed years ago. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. It wasn't just a dinner. It was a goodbye staged in the very spot where everything had once felt possible. That night, as she tried on outfits in front of the mirror, asking which one looked best, I couldn't help but feel a strange sadness. Not for losing her, that part was already gone, but for the man I'd been. The one who believed love could fix dishonesty, forgiveness was enough to rebuild trust. It wasn't. I slipped the watch into my jacket pocket, feeling its familiar weight. Tomorrow, I'd have dinner with the woman who sold my past. But this time, it's be the one walking away for good. And she wouldn't see it coming until the very last bite. The restaurant was dimly lit, the kind of place where everything felt softer, it's more romantic. It almost made me laugh. The hostess led us to a corner table, the same one we'd sat at the night I asked her to marry me. Back then, she'd cried tears of joy. Tonight, her smile was filtered, practiced, like everything else she did. She ordered wine before I even sat down. "I'm glad you wanted to do this," she said, swirling the glass. "It feels like we're finally turning a corner." "Yeah," I said quietly. "A corner." We made small talk for a while, or rather she did. Vacations we'd never take, goals we'd never reach, followers she wanted to hit next month. I let her talk. I watched her hands move, her ring glinting under the candlelight, a symbol that meant nothing now. And then halfway through her story about brand deals, I reached into my jacket. I placed the watch on the table between us. She froze. The ticking filled the silence between us like thunder. Her eyes widened. You bought it back?" She whispered. "Yeah," I said. "From the man you sold it to?" Her face went pale. "Mark, I told you, you needed validation," I interrupted. "Not money. Not survival. You sold something sacred for likes and compliments." She blinked fast, tears welling up, but they felt rehearsed, like everything else. "I made a mistake, okay? You're overreacting." "No," I said, leaning forward. "You don't get it. You didn't just sell my grandfather's watch. You sold the last piece of respect I had for you." Her lips trembled. "So what now? You're just going to walk away?" I smiled faintly, the calmest I'd felt in months. "No, Jenna, I already did." I stood, left a few bills for the meal, and walked out, the ticking fading behind me as I stepped into the cold night air. The sound followed me, though, not hauntingly, but like applause, because for the first time it's been 8 months since that dinner. And sometimes I still hear the ticking of that watch in my dreams. But now, it doesn't hurt. It feels grounding, like a steady reminder that I survived something that almost broke me. The divorce went through quietly. No grand fights, no dramatic scenes, just signatures, silence, and finally, peace. My new apartment is small, but it feels like mine. No filters, no performances, no pretending. I work, I cook, I read. On my desk sits the same wooden box, not as a relic of pain, but as a lesson. The watch inside still ticks, slower now, a little uneven. But maybe that's fitting. Healing isn't perfect either. Sometimes people ask if I miss her. And honestly, I don't think I miss her as much as I miss who I was when I believed in her. Naive, hopeful, eager to please. That version of me died the day she sold the watch. But in a strange way, I'm grateful. Because losing that illusion forced me to find the version of myself my grandfather always believed in, the man who keeps his word, no matter how much it hurts. One evening, I took the watch out and wound it carefully. I whispered, "I got it back, Grandpa." For the first time in years, I smiled, not because everything was fixed, but because I finally understood that some losses are really lessons in disguise. She sold my past to buy her image, but I bought it back with every ounce of pain, patience, and strength I had left. And as the watch ticked on my desk under the quiet glow of the lamp, I realized something simple yet powerful. I didn't just get my grandfather's watch back. I got myself back, and that was worth every second it took. A long time, I'd finally kept my word.